Hello, YouTube divers. This is WaterDive 122, and I want to welcome you all to another episode of Magic Metal Mondays. So we are going to be back at it again with album reviews. Today we are going to be reviewing one of two albums from Brazilian Christian symphonic metal crew Perpetual Legacy. So this episode and the next episode of Magic Metal Mondays will be talking about Perpetual Legacy's two studio albums. This episode will be talking about their debut album from 2015, A New Symphony for Him. And in the next episode, we'll be talking about their sophomore studio album, which came out last year, Teodrama. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be talking about their debut album here. So, as I said, Perpetual Legacy is a Christian symphonic metal band from Brazil. They are led by their amazing vocalist, Michelle Braglia Rodovalho. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. But she's an amazing vocalist, one of the most underrated female vocalists in symphonic metal. Really one of the most underrated vocalists of all time. She's got a really clean voice, especially up there in the high range. And this is very evident on their sophomore album, and I'll talk about that in the next episode. And on this album, they have guitar player. They have a guitar player named Bruno de Sousa. This is the only album from Perpetual Legacy that I'm aware of that features him on the guitars. Then you have Mateus Maia on the bass, and Rafael Lobo on the keyboards. And Rafael, along with Mateus and Michelle, are the three main songwriters and lyricists for this band. And then on the drums, you have Gabriel Pedroso, who this is the only album to feature him on the drums. So, so A New Symphony of Man, A New Symphony for Him is a really interesting debut album. It's a pretty good debut album, but I do have a couple of gripes with it. But before I address those gripes, let's take a look at the track listing. There's 11 tracks on this album. Well, technically 10 if you don't include the opening intro track, Lost in Darkness, but we'll address that when we get to it. Let's talk about the album. So the opening track, as I said, is the intro, Lost in Darkness, and this is a very cliche power metal, symphonic metal intro track. It's really nothing special. You have some strings and some dramatic parts here and there, but it's very well written. And I think it sets the mood good. I think it sets the mood pretty good for this album, which is basically what intro tracks are really supposed to do. And no other genre does it better than power metal and symphonic metal. Then we get to the real opening track, and one of the tracks that was shot a music video for, Looking for the Endless Light. And this is a very good power metal song. Definitely reminds me of like some of those early tracks from Theocracy, and many of those vibes as well. Michelle obviously killing it behind the mic, and the band's playing really well together. And yeah, overall, Looking for the Endless Light is a very good opening track. Then we get Inside Your Secret Chest, which is a very interesting song, but I just feel like a lot of these instrumental parts were just kind of thrown together, and the tone of this song just does not really fit with the rest of the album. But it is very interesting, as I said. It's also very proggy as well. Like many of these tracks are pretty proggy, so you're in for a little bit of progressive spices throughout this album. Then we get the next track, A Beautiful Truth, which is one of the best tracks on the album. It's a little bit more tender, a little bit more laid back, and I think this truly benefits the album. It slows down the pace a little bit, and once again, it has another great vocal performance from Michelle. I think not really anything to complain about this song. Then the next track, we got the title track, A New Symphony for Him, and I love the modulation throughout this song. It opens up in a minor key, and then when the verses hit, it goes into the relative major. I'm using music theory terms here. I'm a nerd. Um, the parallel major here. My fault. Yeah, I'm a nerd. But yeah, I really love that change in mood throughout. I mean, throughout like these instrumental parts and the verses. It's a very, very nice touch, if you ask me, and I love it when bands do that too. Then we get the best track on the album, which is the only ballad on this record, Metonymy. And wowzers, this is a gorgeous ballad. This is, without a doubt, one of the most gorgeous ballads in symphonic metal. Like, I'm being dead serious. This is right up there with some of those ballads from bands like Nightwish and Epica and bands like that. Especially Epica. This is a very, very beautiful song. And Michelle's vocals are just chef's kiss on this song. I love her voice on this track. Best track on the album. And then we get a little bit of a step down with Kairos and Aeternum, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of this track. I barely remember anything about this track. I just listened to this album not too long ago, and I already forgot about this song. If I'm being totally honest, it's definitely the weakest track on the record, if you ask me. Then we get Our Pride, which is a little bit more on the longer side. Well, I say longer. It's not even 6 minutes long, but it's one of the longest tracks on the album. And I mean, yeah, this song is pretty good. It's again another staple on the album. It's another power metal banger, and it's a little bit more on the heavier side, hinting to where they would go on their following album. Minor spoiler alert. Um, then we get Singing Forever, which I believe is one of the more overplayed tracks on this album, and I think it's cool, but much like with Inside Your Secret Chest, I feel like the tone of this song just doesn't really fit with the rest of the album. It's again very proggy, very wonky and experimental, which I mean is fine and it is like I said pretty interesting, but personally I just don't really think it fits the overall tone and vibe of the album. But hey, I think the fans love it, so there we go. Then we get Blood Tears and I Looked Up High, which are two very strong tracks to close off the album. They're both very cool power metal songs, symphonic metal tracks as well. But overall, this basically gives me a lot of vibes of Eden Bridges' debut album, Sunrise in Eden, especially in the production department. And that is the number one thing that I dislike about this album. The production on this record, by symphonic metal standards, is not good. Now I get it, to some extent. It's not easy producing a symphonic metal album because you got a lot of different tracks of orchestration, instrumentation, plugins, all that stuff. I get it. It's not easy, and especially for a band doing this on their very first try, but yeah, it is just way too overcompressed, especially in the guitars and the drumming department. And Michelle's vocals are just buried in a lot of these songs. It just basically feels like they put way too many compression plugins on the guitars and drums, and then they just kind of left Michelle's vocal tracks on like the back burner. At least that's what I get when I listen. That's what I feel. That's what I feel is happening when I listen to this album. But yeah, again, I'm using music production terminology here. So yeah, I'm a nerd. Uh, but overall, A New Symphony for him is a solid debut. But man, I wish this album was better produced. And maybe some of the songs could use a little bit of tweaking here and there, but I mean, like, production's the big one for me, and as a result, I'm going to give this album a 7.5 out of 10. I feel like the album has enough strong tracks to make it a pretty good album, but the production and a couple of the weaker tracks on here just doesn't really do it for me, and as a result, it affects the album's overall score. But overall, A New Symphony for him, pretty good start, just bad production. That's all I gotta say. Alright, so with that said, that concludes this edition of Magic Metal Mondays. Thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is WaterEye122 signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thanks for watching.